Hi everyone, this is Craig from the University of Applied Research and Development, and we have Angela Hamann with us, who's a project manager, also a mediator, an advocate, and a researcher as well in disaster recovery and negotiation. Hey Angela, good to see you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Delighted that you're with us. Why don't you tell us about your current role and how you came to be involved in disaster recovery?
Okay, great. Well, I kind of got into it a little bit backwards. I first approached this from the dispute resolution. My education and background is in dispute resolution, and then I happened upon this role with the pandemic. Requiring so many jobs. I mean, so many jobs opened up with the pandemic and disaster recovery. I took on a role on under a contract, a federal contract, to help citizens who were impacted by the storms that hit Florida. I live in the state of Florida, which is impacted by hurricanes almost every year,
Mm,
devastating hurricanes that really impacted citizens every year. The company that took me on decided to take on a contract through the federal government that required to set up a construction company that would go in and, under the contract, under a grant, and help repair these homes. And so I was hired for that purpose, still having the dispute resolution background, but really the role was, I have more of a legal dispute resolution background, and the role was more of a contract review, but it morphed into project management. And I'm so happy about it because I'm not really focused on the legal side, I can apply my dispute resolution and more of a collaborative role into this disaster recovery. And now I can apply my education, and I'm actually working towards my PhD and applying research to my role. And it's been wonderful because I can help the citizens with my research and my education in different facets of the role in disaster recovery. And I can tell that people are, the construction industry, nobody really thinks that there's any room for dispute resolution. And maybe prior to now, there wasn't. But I am hopefully, leading the way into, and I think that my company is also finding that there is a path for collaboration in this industry, and we are really pushing that and finding that it's very helpful for agencies to come together and really work as a team versus, the competitiveness that maybe sometimes government agencies, tend to, utilize to get their contracts fulfilled.
mm,
Doesn't really
mm,
work.
mm.
Doesn't help the citizens either. So we're trying to do something different, and it's been helpful.
So your company was originally removing debris from one of these events and then moved into COVID response as well with testing and vaccinations. Do you want to tell us about that process and why the desire to move into that area?
The CEO of my company she's so um, she's got so many great ideas, and that's so necessary today, with the way that the world is moving in so many different directions. Her vision is, and her mindset, what she can apply to disaster recovery. It just needs that new set of eyes, that new mindset. And the fact that she's a female CEO also provides that into this industry. It's always been so kind of old school and, tends to be a little old fashioned, I guess, is maybe the same word, but I'm glad that she's putting a new twist on things, and part of that is the collaboration. But she had a vision. Like you said, it had always been debris removal, and she had a vision for the COVID response, and we just really did so wonderful that we've gotten a lot of great feedback from mayors and governors, and because we've been all up and down the East Coast of the United States, providing testing and vaccines in communities that would not otherwise have the availability of the vaccines and the testing. So we've just immediately put in trucks that would be in rural areas, urban areas that would not have otherwise had that availability. And we've seen such a great response. We've gotten so that's inspired her to move on into other directions with contracts, which is how we've gotten this Rebuild Florida contract to help with the disaster recovery from the hurricanes. So I just admire her, forward thinking, and she just believes that her company can do other things other than just debris removal, which is very important in disasters, in disaster response. But her company can do all kinds of things to help the citizens of this country.
Tell us about the Rebuild Florida and some of the things that you're doing.
Okay, it's a challenge. It's such a challenge, I tell you. The contract was available several years ago, but there was just a lot of hiccups with it. And then they put out another RFP, request for proposals from contractors to bid again. And so we went on the second round of bids, and that's when she thought, what, we can do this. Let's do this, team. And then she hired a bunch of people. I was one of those people. And I was not thinking that this is what I was going to be doing, but I'm so glad that she saw my resume. She said that she's going to be perfect. And she brought me on because of my background in dispute resolution and collaboration. She had a vision. She saw that I could be helpful and be a great addition to that contract. And she was right. And we've been really moved. We've been in second place with all the contractors that have been involved in this work under the government contract, just by our ability to work with the citizens. And they've been very stressed out. You can only imagine their house. I mean, the roofs were torn off. They've had tarps on their homes. Everything's been leaking. And in Florida, everything's very humid. So you've got, I don't even want to say the M word, but, a lot of moisture that creates problems for people that needs to be addressed and fast. So we've been in there, tackling these problems very fast and getting them addressed and getting people back to maybe not whole, but addressing the issues that occurred under the hurricane disaster and getting those corrected for them so that they can move on, And another thing that the Rebuild contract did, which I give them lots of credit for, is they made sure, and I think this is amazing that the government provided the funds to do this, is they made sure that when we went in to do the construction in these homes, that the roofs had hurricane straps, that they had radiant barrier plywood applied. I mean, the best supplies went into rebuilding these roofs, and they have impact glass in the windows and then the sliding doors. I mean, the best supplies, and they would not settle for anything less. And you're going to get fined for trying to put anything less into these people's homes. So to provide the citizens with the best so that the next storm that comes along, the house will survive. And they won't have to go through this whole, cycle of calling their insurance company, hey, I need help, I need more funds, because it just became a big cycle. Every single year a hurricane comes and the house is destroyed, and then they have to call their insurance company and have these repairs made. And it's just, it's stressful, and that's what they were trying to avoid. So I have to commend the government for, forking out that fund to make sure that the citizens are taken care of. And, they've come They've come out and they've really helped the citizens. So being a part of this contract has really been it's made my heart feel really good that I've been a part of all this and under this company that saw this contract and thought, this is what we want to stand for. This is what we want to do for the citizens of Florida. So it's been really great.
Angela, you're a PhD. Tell
Yes.
us about your PhD and the topic of your PhD.
Yes, so full circle. So my PhD is focused on conflict analysis and conflict resolution. I really am focused on the analysis part. I really love to research conflict. So this has been a great experience for me because of the conflict that comes from experiencing the stress and the trauma of disaster. And so if you're researching disaster, you know that with it comes the trauma of the unexpected, experiencing that disaster. And then the after effect of that, of course, because unresolved trauma, just keeps coming up for people. So working with people, so this is how I've become effective. I'm kind of a go-between. I've been working with the people who I am trying to help, and sometimes they're not receptive. So it's talking to them, working through that trauma, not in a clinical way at all, but just having a conversation with them and trying to find out what their needs are. Sometimes it takes some working through to get that, and then seeing if we can meet that need. Sometimes it's just something little, like they need more storage for their belongings while the construction's going on, or something that they didn't think that they could have, that maybe we can make happen. Maybe it was not something in their contract with Rebuild Florida that we could actually maybe make happen. So it's having that conversation with them through their frustration of living with these damages in their home before the construction can happen. And then sometimes it's, talking to them about now that the construction has happened and now that their homes should be in good working order, there is that level of, well, now who takes care of me? Now what do I do if something goes wrong with that work that you've done? And, there's a level, I don't want to say entitlement, but for a long time, we have been doing work in their homes. So there's that cutoff where, okay, now who's going to take care of me? You're not here. So, there's some emotional stuff that goes on for sure.
So in terms of some principles for people that are working in emergency response or disaster recovery, when you notice that people are responding in a way which brings conflict, or you can see conflict happening between people involved in the situation, what are some principles that people could put into place or ways that they could respond to that situation that would be helpful?
When I see people experiencing some of that and I've often thought about that. Like, could there be caseworkers? And there are, I think Rebuild that has a level of, those liaisons that can be there to handle some of that stuff, but I don't know how trained they are. And maybe there needs to be some, trained for that purpose. They are there to act as a go-between with, it's more of a contract liaison, okay, here's what's on your contract. This is the best we can do. Sorry about that. We can't do anything more. I think there needs to be a little more, maybe training a little more on, hey, they've gone through all this trauma because of the disaster that occurred that they weren't expecting. And maybe someone needs to be there to kind of help them work through that. Maybe another level to that. Maybe that would be helpful. And that could help them through that whole process. But, that's another expense. So I don't know. I think it is nice that they get the work done on their home, though.
As a person who's working in disaster response, as an emergency responder in those types of situations, when you see conflict happening, what can I do as an individual person to help reduce the level of conflict, reduce the heat, and the emotion? What are some principles that we could use?
The level of conflict, what could we do to reduce that?
Yeah.
I think, what I have tried to do, what I've noticed has been very helpful, is just be consistent. Um, I think what and I can tell you this, very that I don't know if you've worked with a lot of construction workers. This has been the biggest issue, and what I've been very helpful with during this program is being the go-between with our construction workers and the homeowner. Construction workers are not very good at communicating and not very consistent. They'll say, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow, and then not show up and not call. And if somebody who's experienced some trauma, that's very hard on them. So I think that having that level of consistency, showing up when they're supposed to, or calling if they can't, or, having somebody there who can be that if that construction worker is not able to, would probably help reduce a lot of conflict with the homeowners. Because I can tell you that the calls that we receive, or the calls that Rebuild receives, I told you there's case managers involved. The calls that they receive are, hey, you said you were going to show up, or your contractor said that they were going to show up this day and they never did, or somebody was going to call them back and they never did, and that's why they're calling me now. So that's the conflict. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in normal life, when the plumber doesn't turn up or the builder doesn't turn up, that's frustrating, particularly when you've taken time off work, or rearranged your schedule to have the contractor turn up. But in a scenario where the roof is off and the water's turned off, and you're in the middle of rebuilding and traveling backwards and forwards for hours because transportation's not working, that's just one level of frustration and annoyance that you just don't need. So in your PhD, your focus is on conflict and contracts. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, it seems to be for this. And the conflict analysis that I've applied here is mostly the trauma that people have experienced as a result of the disaster, and then their ability to resile, to ask for help, or get themselves back from that disaster, to recover themselves from the disaster, and the levels. Because I've done a lot of site visits after the disaster, and to see the level, to their homes, and some of them don't have a place to go afterwards. So some of them kind of have to make it kind of livable, and then live there until somebody comes to kind of fix it up for them. And just to see how the strength that they have to resile from that has been amazing to me. And I need to write about that. I need to research more. And that has given me a lot to definitely think about and apply to some of the other research that I have already begun with. That's been a big deal for me, trauma and resilience.
Okay.
Even before I started this job with disaster recovery. So it's almost been perfect, a perfect position for me.
Okay. Well, Angela, really appreciate your time. It's not something that I've considered before as well. It's great for our students and our listeners, our watchers, to understand about this. Thank you very much for giving your time on a Sunday.
My pleasure. Anytime. Anything else I can do, just anything for research, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. So everyone else, for our students and those that are watching and emergency responders, this is another facet to your role, and worth considering as well, and some training on this area of conflict resolution. I look forward to sharing Angela's research with all of us once that's completed as well with her PhD. So congratulations on that in advance, Angela. And for the rest of you as emergency managers, as you know, you're always training, you're always getting extra certifications, and you've probably got that big binder full of courses that you've done, certifications that you
Mhm.
received, but maybe that doesn't translate into an academic degree. And that's why we were established, to make sure that emergency managers could receive credit for all the training and the certifications that you've done. So do visit us, uard.org or uard.ac.nz. And also, if you're in America and you're a veteran or an active service personnel, then we are VA funded as well for our bachelor and our master's program in emergency response and risk management. So thanks for being with us. I look forward to seeing you again on another episode soon.